Beloved, hear me with your whole heart. This is not just another video. This is a divine interruption. Heaven has pressed pause on your day to deliver a message that could change the way you see yourself and the way you walk into your future. For too long, distractions and lies have tried to convince you to shrink, to settle, to stop reaching for the life God designed you for. But this moment is different. This is a sacred checkpoint, a wake-up call from eternity. Let me ask you, how many times have you believed the voice that said you weren't enough? How often have you silenced your dreams because fear was louder than faith? And what if those battles you've been wrestling with are not punishment, but preparation? Could it be that your very survival is proof that you're on the edge of breakthrough? This is where spiritual journals meet you, with a prophetic charge to rise, to embrace a growth mindset, and to see your challenges not as dead ends, but as doorways. You are not here by accident. You are here because God is realigning your steps and awakening your purpose. So lean in and don't miss a second. If you haven't already, subscribe to Spiritual Journals and turn on your notifications so you never miss what heaven is speaking in this season. Thank you for being here, for showing up hungry, and for daring to believe there's more. Your transformation begins now.
Beloved, lean in with me because I feel this heavy on my heart. Life has a way of throwing voices at us, some loud, some subtle, that tell us we don't measure up. They tell us to stay small, to accept what is familiar, to settle for less than what God promised. The battle against lies and settling is one every chosen soul must face. The enemy's greatest weapon isn't always destruction. Sometimes it's the constant hum of distraction. Lies that whisper, "You don't need more. Just stay quiet. Just exist." I have heard those whispers, and maybe you have too. But what shook me one day was the realization that the intensity of the lie is proof of the size of your calling. If the enemy fights you this hard, it must mean heaven marked you this strongly. And in that moment, I chose to stop agreeing with the whispers and start aligning with the word. The Bible says in John 8:32, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." That freedom begins the moment you stop agreeing with lies and start speaking life. Now let's shift, because your story of survival is proof that you were never meant to live buried in lies. Think back to the seasons where you thought you wouldn't make it, the heartbreak that crushed your chest, the nights you cried so hard you couldn't breathe, the odds stacked against you that should have taken you out. Yet here you are, listening, alive, chosen. Your survival is the evidence of God's hand. Isaiah 43 reminds us, "When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not consume you." Beloved, you didn't just stumble through that season. You carried a fireproof grace that testified louder than your pain. Your scars are not signs of shame. They are survival notes written in holy ink. Every tear, every step you made through the storm became a witness to your resilience. That's why your story matters so much, because someone else is watching, hoping to see proof that survival is possible. And beloved, you are that proof. Here's the turning point. Your faith was never just about you. I remember a friend once who told me, "Your strength held me when I had none." I didn't even realize it, but my presence in their storm gave them courage to keep walking. That's what your faith does. Every time you stand back up, someone else sees hope. Every time you lift your head, someone else learns that the weight they carry can be lifted too. 2 Corinthians 1 says that God comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort others with the same comfort we've received. That means your journey has ripple effects. You are someone's anchor, someone's reminder that darkness does not get the final word. And here's the miracle. You don't have to have all the answers. Sometimes all it takes is your presence, your quiet testimony, your simple yes to keep walking with God. That's enough to stir faith in someone else's heart. But I need to pause and ask, are you listening? Because sometimes transformation doesn't come when we speak, but when we stop speaking. I had to learn this the hard way. I argued with God, I explained myself to people, I tried to drown out my own fears with noise. But when I finally stopped talking, when I sat in silence, that's when I heard him clearly. I never left. I never stopped guiding. Beloved, silence can be the very place where purpose is reborn. Think of Elijah in 1 Kings 19. He didn't find God in the earthquake or the fire, but in the gentle whisper. That whisper changed everything. What if your next breakthrough isn't about striving harder, but listening deeper? What if finding purpose in this season means creating space for God to speak again? Try this. Take 10 minutes this week to sit without music, without your phone, without distraction. Ask him one question. Lord, what are you saying to me right now? And wait. Because often the answers you need are already waiting for your silence. Now let's shift to atmosphere, because purpose thrives in environments of faith. I began to change the way my space looked. I placed scriptures on my walls. I wrote down promises and taped them where I could see them every morning. I filled my home with words of faith instead of fear. Suddenly, I noticed my mindset shift. I started expecting heaven instead of waiting for disappointment. Beloved, create reminders of abundance around you. Plant seeds of hope where your eyes fall. Because when your surroundings reflect what you believe, your spirit starts to rise into it. Philippians 4:8 tells us to think on whatever is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, and admirable. So make your home echo that truth. Purpose isn't just found in big moments. It is cultivated in the daily atmosphere of faith. And here is the deeper revelation. Your presence is not accidental. Every place your feet touch, every conversation you enter, every moment you show up, it matters. You bring divine energy into rooms without even realizing it. You carry light into atmospheres that felt heavy before you arrived. That's why the enemy works so hard to distract you, because he knows if you ever step fully into your God-given presence, change will break and atmospheres will shift. You are not just surviving, you are shaping spaces with your very existence. That's purpose. That's why you're still here. Beloved, finding purpose doesn't mean you will have all the answers, but it does mean you keep walking even when the road bends. It means holding faith when doubt wants to crush you. It means framing obstacles as opportunities to grow. James 1:2-3 says to consider it pure joy when you face trials, because those trials produce perseverance. And perseverance is what shapes your character into someone who can carry glory. Do you see it? Every obstacle was part of your training. Every unanswered prayer was preparation for a greater yes. Nothing was wasted. So here is the final call. Your worth has always been secure. The prayers you whispered have always been heard, and the answers are moving toward you aligned with God's greater plan. Don't let lies make you settle. Don't let fear silence you. Don't let distraction steal the holy assignment that is tied to your name. This is your moment to rise into purpose with courage, humility, and faith. If this word has stirred your spirit, write in the comments, "I choose truth over lies." That declaration becomes your first step into breakthrough. And if this message blessed you, I invite you to subscribe to Spiritual Journals so we can keep walking this journey together. Share this video with someone who feels lost, because your act of faith could be the spark that helps them find their purpose again. Beloved, let me bless you before you go. May every lie lose its grip on your mind. May clarity replace confusion. May your resilience shine brighter than your scars. May your silence be filled with God's whispers. And may you step boldly into the fullness of your purpose, knowing you were never forgotten, always chosen, and forever loved. This is your hour. Finding purpose begins now.
Beloved, pause with me for a moment and think back to the nights when you thought the story was over.
The heartbreak that felt too heavy to carry. The betrayal that cut deeper than words. The seasons when hope seemed like a stranger. Yet, here you are, breathing, standing, listening to this very word. That's not coincidence. That's divine intervention. The proof of your survival is the proof of His hand. You didn't make it through because of luck. You made it through because heaven itself refused to let go of you. The Bible declares in Psalm 34:19, "Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all." That word all means there was no valley, no storm, no tear too great for God to rescue you from. I remember seasons when I thought the weight would bury me, when I cried until my pillow was soaked, when silence made me believe heaven had gone quiet. But looking back, I can see the fingerprints of divine intervention all over those moments. It wasn't just my strength keeping me afloat. It was the unseen hand of God lifting me, protecting me, redirecting me. Sometimes He split the Red Sea wide open. Other times He carried me across on His shoulders when I had no strength left. And beloved, the same is true for you. Your survival is evidence that God has been fighting battles behind the veil that you didn't even know existed. Scars don't tell the story of shame. They tell the story of survival. They are holy reminders that the weapon was formed, but it did not prosper. Think of Daniel in the lion's den. He walked out not because the lions weren't hungry, but because divine intervention shut their mouths. Think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They didn't survive the furnace because the flames weren't hot, but because divine intervention walked into the fire with them. Beloved, your story is no different. The furnace did not consume you, the flood did not drown you, and the storm did not sink you, because God Himself was with you. Isaiah 43:2 promises, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you." That's not poetry. That's survival truth. Here's the part I love. Survival itself is a testimony, but divine intervention means your story will not stop at survival. God didn't bring you this far just to leave you standing in ashes. He brings beauty from ashes, joy from mourning, praise from despair. He turns the survival season into a season of revival. Think of Joseph, sold, betrayed, forgotten in a prison. Yet divine intervention took him from the pit to the palace in a single day. Your pit has been preparation, not punishment. And just as Joseph declared in Genesis 50:20, "What you meant for evil, God meant for good," you too will see the tables turn. And beloved, here's a fresh invitation. Begin to write down the moments where divine intervention showed up in your past. A door that opened at the last minute. A bill that was paid when you didn't know how. A healing that came when hope seemed gone. Start a deliverance journal, a living book of evidence that God has been present in every chapter of your story. Every entry becomes a seed of faith for the next miracle. When fear rises, flip back and say, if He did it then, He'll do it again. That practice will remind you that divine intervention isn't a once-in-a-lifetime event. It's a pattern of God's faithfulness. Beloved, if this word is touching your heart, let your declaration be clear. Write in the comments, "Divine intervention carried me." Let that be your testimony, not just to mark your agreement, but to release faith into the atmosphere. Because when you testify, you don't just remind yourself, you remind the enemy that you are still standing, still chosen, still protected by the God who never fails. I bless you now.
May your scars glow with the light of survival instead of the shadow of shame. May divine intervention continue to meet you in hidden places, rewriting endings into new beginnings. May every obstacle transform into opportunity, every trial into testimony, every tear into seed for joy. Beloved, you are not here by accident. You are here because heaven refused to let your story end. And now, with divine intervention guiding your steps, your future is not only secure, it is radiant with promise.
Beloved, let me tell you something that may stir your heart to its very core. Your survival, your scars, your persistence, they were never just about you. Heaven designed it so that your resilience would ripple outward into the lives of others. Every time you chose to rise again, even when your knees trembled, someone else watching found the courage to take one more step. Every time you whispered a prayer through tears that blurred your vision, another soul learned that prayer works, even in pain. This is the mystery and beauty of faith in adversity. It multiplies. It grows in places where logic says it should die, and it becomes an anchor for those around you who are barely holding on. I remember sitting with a dear friend in their valley. The weight on them was so heavy I could almost feel it pressing down on my own chest. I didn't have wise words. I didn't have a plan. I only had presence. But presence, when drenched in faith, is more powerful than polished speeches. Months later, they told me, your faith carried me when mine was gone. And I realized something sacred. Sometimes faith in adversity is not just about lifting yourself. It's about holding up someone else's arms when they can't lift them on their own. It's like Moses in Exodus 17. When his arms grew weary, Aaron and Hur stood on either side holding them up. And as long as his hands were lifted, Israel prevailed. Your quiet, stubborn faith has been the arms someone else leaned on. Faith in adversity is a strange, holy thing. It's not pretty, not polished, not always joyful. Sometimes it looks like taking one trembling step when you'd rather stay in bed. Sometimes it sounds like a groan instead of a hymn. And yet heaven counts it as victory. Jesus said in Matthew 17 that even mustard seed faith can move mountains. That means your tiny act of courage, your whispered prayer in the dark, your choice to rise again after being knocked down. Those moments move things in the unseen realm. And the miracle is this: people around you notice. They see you walk through fire and not be consumed, and suddenly their hope flickers back to life. Let me paint this with a similarity. Faith in adversity is like a lighthouse on a stormy coast. The lighthouse does not stop the waves, nor silence the wind, but it shines steady through the storm so that sailors know they are not alone. That's you. You may feel battered, but your light keeps flickering through the fog, guiding others who would otherwise lose their way. And here's the secret. You often don't even realize the impact you're having. Someone is alive today, moving forward today because they saw your faith still standing when everything around you was shaking. But here's a high point that must be said. Your testimony is not just about the past, it is about the future. The enemy trembles not because of what you went through, but because you are still willing to speak about it. Revelation 12:11 declares that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. That means your story carries weight in the spirit realm. When you tell of how you endured, chains break off listeners. When you declare that God met you in the midnight hour, someone else dares to believe He will meet them too. So don't be silent. Your voice is not just yours, it is a weapon of light in someone else's darkness. Faith in adversity is also deeply personal. It is the way God shows you who you really are when everything else is stripped away. Think of Job. His friends thought his suffering meant abandonment, but Job's faith, though shaken, clung to God. In Job 19:25, he declares, "I know that my Redeemer lives." That single declaration, in the middle of unimaginable adversity, has echoed through centuries, anchoring countless souls. What if your faith in this season becomes that kind of anchor? What if generations rise because you chose to believe when everything told you not to? Beloved, here's a fresh practice for this season. When adversity rises, write down not just your struggles, but also the ways God meets you in small, ordinary moments. The unexpected phone call, the peace that came for 5 minutes when you thought you couldn't breathe, the scripture that leapt off the page and steadied your soul. Keep a faith log of God's fingerprints in your adversity. Then, when someone else feels like they can't go on, open that book and read it aloud. That simple act will anchor their storm to your testimony. And I must say this, don't despise the cracks in your armor. Sometimes your broken places shine brighter than your victories. Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 12 that God's power is made perfect in weakness. That means the very parts of you that feel fragile may be the strongest evidence of God's glory. Your tears are not wasted. They are seeds of faith, watering someone else's barren ground. So here's the charge. Keep standing. Keep praying. Keep believing, even when the believing feels small. Because your faith in adversity is not only sustaining you, it is building a bridge for others. Someone is waiting on your persistence to decide if they should keep living. Someone is waiting on your courage to decide if they should take another step. And you, beloved, are carrying them without even realizing it. If this word has touched you, I want you to declare it boldly. Write in the comments, "My faith is an anchor." That declaration becomes more than words. It becomes a prayer that heaven honors. It becomes a blessing, not just over you, but over everyone who reads it. I bless you now. May your faith in adversity grow unshakable roots. May your scars shine with holy light. May your testimony awaken courage in those who feel forgotten. And may you discover that even in your darkest hours, God was weaving a story that will anchor not only you, but countless others who are still searching for hope. This is your moment. This is your calling. Your faith in adversity is your gift to the world.
Beloved, let me speak from my own heart, because this truth has been carved into me by fire. For years, I thought breakthrough came from pushing harder, praying louder, convincing everyone around me that I was worthy of being heard. But the Spirit had to bring me to a place of stillness, where my words had to fall silent so I could finally hear His. That was the turning point, the shift where I realized that silence is not weakness, it is the soil of spiritual growth. Psalm 46:10 whispers, "Be still and know that I am God." It doesn't say run faster or shout louder, it says be still. Sometimes spiritual growth doesn't look like action, it looks like surrender. I had to learn this lesson in a season of heartbreak. I was desperate for answers, desperate for relief, and I kept talking at God like He hadn't already seen the whole story. One night, exhausted, I sat in silence. I didn't ask, I didn't explain, I didn't plead. And in that quiet, I felt Him say, "I never left. I never stopped guiding." That moment changed me forever. My silence became my sanctuary. And I believe this could be your turning point too. What if your next miracle isn't about doing more, but about listening more? Listening until His whisper becomes louder than your fears, until His promises silence the lies. Spiritual growth often happens in unseen ways. Think of the seed planted in the soil. It disappears into the dark, and from the outside, nothing looks alive. But beneath the surface, roots are forming. The seed is stretching, pressing, preparing. That's what God does with us in hidden seasons. He buries us not to forget us, but to grow us. Jesus said in John 12:24, "Unless a kernel of wheat
falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. The silence you've been enduring may feel like death, but it's actually the birthplace of new life. Here's another perspective. Sometimes spiritual growth is not about waiting for a thunderous revelation, but about practicing daily trust in the small things. When you choose gratitude over complaining, when you take a walk and notice His fingerprints in creation, when you wake up and say, "Lord, I give this day to you," these small acts accumulate into strength. They may seem ordinary, but they create extraordinary depth in your spirit. Think of David tending sheep in obscurity. That season of listening, of quiet, of unseen obedience prepared him for the day when he would face Goliath. The stone that felled the giant was forged in seasons of silence. And here's the high point I want you to hold on to. Spiritual growth does not erase your struggles, but it transforms them. I remember walking through a season where financial pressure almost broke me. I cried out for rescue, but what God gave me was wisdom and how to manage little with faith. That wisdom became wealth. That pressure became provision. Beloved, the very struggle you are cursing right now may be the training ground for your destiny. James 1:2-4 reminds us to consider it pure joy when we face trials, because the testing of faith produces perseverance, and perseverance must finish its work so that we may be mature and complete. That is spiritual growth, not avoiding the storm, but becoming unshakable in it. Let me invite you into a fresh activity. This week, instead of asking God for answers, try sitting with Him in silence for 10 minutes. No agenda, no performance, just presence. Write down afterward what you sensed in your spirit, even if it's only a word, a phrase, or a feeling. Over time, you'll begin to notice patterns, whispers of His voice you might have missed before. That practice will not only deepen your intimacy with God, but train your ears to recognize His guidance in every corner of your life. And don't overlook this truth: your presence matters. The way you show up in rooms, the calm you carry, the love you release, it speaks louder than you know. Someone may never step into a church, but they will encounter God through your peace, your silence, your patience, your faith under pressure. It is a sermon without words. Spiritual growth is not just for you, it overflows into others. Like Paul and Silas singing in prison, your praise in adversity becomes someone else's breakthrough. Beloved, let me leave you with this charge. Stop arguing with yourself. Stop explaining your worth to those who cannot see it. Stop drowning out God's whisper with your noise. The turning point is not always in doing more, but in listening deeper. In that silence, He will remind you of who you are. In that silence, He will reorder your steps. In that silence, He will grow you into the person you were always meant to be. If this word speaks to you, write in the comments, "I choose silence for spiritual growth." Let that be your declaration, a marker that you are ready to listen more than you strive. Share this with someone who is weary, because your act of faith might be the anchor they need. I bless you right now. May the silence you step into become the sanctuary where God's voice grows louder. May every distraction lose its grip. May your hidden season produce roots that cannot be shaken. And may your journey of spiritual growth become not only your strength, but a light that guides others home. This is your turning point. Embrace it. The silence is holy, and in it, God is speaking.
Beloved, let us step into something deeper, because preparing your atmosphere is more than decorating a space. It is the act of aligning your surroundings with the promise of heaven. The truth is, what you allow to surround you begins to shape you. If you sit daily in an atmosphere of chaos,
your spirit will feel unsettled. But if you prepare an atmosphere of faith, peace begins to flood your soul. This is where faith-based transformation comes alive. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Transformation begins in the unseen, but it manifests in the choices you make every day, even in how you set the atmosphere of your life. I remember a season when everything around me screamed lack. Bills piled up, relationships cracked, and hope felt thin. I realized one day that my home reflected my struggle. Piles of paper spoke of stress, silence carried despair, and my own words echoed doubt. Then the Spirit whispered, "Shift the atmosphere." I took one small step. I wrote down a single verse. Philippians 4:19, "My God shall supply all your needs according to his riches in glory," and placed it on my refrigerator. That verse greeted me every morning. Soon I added worship music as the background sound of my evenings, turning worry into praise. Slowly, faith-based transformation filled my atmosphere until I believed again that abundance was possible. And beloved, when your faith shifts, your life begins to follow. Here's a truth I want you to hold on to. Your atmosphere is not just physical, it's spiritual. Think of Paul and Silas in Acts 16. They were chained in a prison, yet their worship shifted the atmosphere. At midnight, they prayed and sang hymns, and suddenly the foundations of the prison shook and the doors flew open. Their chains did not fall because of their location, but because of their declaration. That's the power of preparing your atmosphere. It creates room for heaven to invade earth. Sometimes we think abundance is only about money, but real abundance is about overflow in every area of life. Abundance in peace, in creativity, in relationships, in joy. Faith-based transformation takes the ordinary places of your life and fills them with holy expectation. When you pray in your living room, that space becomes an altar. When you speak blessing over your children's rooms, those walls become shields. When you declare promises in your workplace, your desk becomes a testimony of faith. Here's a fresh activity to try. Choose one object in your home to represent answered prayers. It could be a candle, a photo, or even a stone from outside. Each time God answers a prayer, place another item nearby. Over time, you will build a visible altar of remembrance, a testimony you can look at when faith feels thin. Just like the Israelites stacked stones by the Jordan River as a memorial of God's deliverance, you will have a reminder that God still moves. Beloved, faith-based transformation also means shifting the atmosphere inside your own heart. Jesus said in Matthew 12:34, "Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." So what are you speaking into your own life? Are your words filled with doubt or filled with promise? I had to learn to stop speaking defeat over myself. Instead of saying, "I can't handle this," I began to declare, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." That simple shift turned my prayers from pleading into proclaiming, and I noticed my confidence in God rise like the morning sun. And here's a high point I want you to really let sink in. Obstacles are not always barriers. They are invitations to deeper faith. The enemy wants you to believe that the closed door means rejection, but often the closed door is God's way of redirecting you to a greater promise. Spiritual abundance isn't about having everything go your way. It's about having the faith to believe that everything is working together for your good. Romans 8:28 reminds us of this truth. So the next time you face an obstacle, instead of despairing, shift the atmosphere. Lift your hands and say, "This too will serve my transformation." Let me remind you, your presence in this world is intentional. You are not an accident. You are a carrier of divine atmosphere. When you walk into a room, heaven walks in with you. Your smile may soften a hardened heart. Your prayer may lift a weary soul. Your very life is a declaration that God still breathes purpose into the earth. That is faith-based transformation. It's not just about you. It's about the overflow that touches everyone connected to you. So here's the charge for today. Begin to prepare your atmosphere intentionally. Play worship even when you don't feel like it. Write down promises even when you doubt them. Place reminders of answered prayers in places where you can see them. And most of all, speak life. Speak hope. Speak abundance. As Proverbs 18:21 declares, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Choose life with your words and watch your atmosphere begin to mirror heaven itself. If this word stirred something in you, write in the comments, "My atmosphere reflects heaven." Let that be your declaration today. Share this message with someone who needs a reminder that their atmosphere can change, and subscribe to stay connected to more faith-filled encouragement. I bless you now. May your home become a sanctuary of peace. May your heart overflow with expectation. May your obstacles turn into opportunities. And may you walk daily in faith-based transformation, carrying the presence of heaven into every atmosphere you enter. This is your season of abundance. Prepare your space. Prepare your spirit, and watch how quickly God's answers begin to arrive right on schedule.
Beloved, as we come to the close of this message, I want to speak directly to your heart. This has not been just another motivational speech. It has been a prophetic reminder that your scars are evidence of survival, your tears are seeds for future joy, and your faith is the bridge to the life you were always meant to live. You are not defined by the lies that almost crushed you. You are defined by the truth that God has spoken over you. If this word resonated deeply, I want you to anchor it in the comments by declaring, "I choose truth over lies." That simple act becomes more than a comment. It becomes a prophetic declaration over your own life. I also want to pause and thank you. Thank you for showing up, for listening with an open spirit, and for choosing growth over fear. Your presence here tells me you are ready for a higher place, and that inspires me personally. If you haven't already, I invite you to subscribe to Spiritual Journals and turn on your notifications. Together, we are building a family of faith, a sanctuary of encouragement, and a community where God's word flows like living water. Now, let me bless you. May your nights be filled with peace. May your mornings open with joy. May your strength shine brighter than every battle you've endured. And may your prayers return as answers so miraculous that you can only say, "This had to be God." Step forward, beloved. Your season is here.